welcome to Mediterranean Forum. So today we go to talk about energy and relation by sustainability and gas and oil branch. So we have guest of this day, Mr. Gabriele Ghio, analyst and geopolitical for energy, business consultant, editor, the Energy. So welcome, Gabriele.
Thank you very much, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to share some food for talks, and I hope they're going to be useful for the forum.
I'm sure you are in Kuwait today now, okay? Correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that is correct. I'm working as a business consultant, as you mentioned, for the energy year, and we are carrying on the project on the oil and gas sector in the country.
So you are a real expert. I would like to ask you, how is the situation of energy in the Mediterranean area? Because we have many situations that now involve the Mediterranean. So I talk about conflict, I talk about new exploration and so on. So which is your opinion and how you see the Mediterranean area in the energy vision?
The Mediterranean region, particularly the Eastern Mediterranean, has always been an area of conflicts, but also of cooperation. Particularly following the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, it was evident to everybody, particularly to the European Union, that the supply of resources of oil and gas should have been more diversified. So that's why all the countries have been trying to diversify their supplies in order also to support and to back up the supply chain, the industrial supply chain, because we know how much important is going to be for the future the energy scene and also all the industrial developments that are related to that. From the International Energy Agency, we know that from between 2023 and 2050, the demand of energy is going to be increased by 50%. And this is something very important to mention because sometimes the impact of the transition is underestimated, but we know the relationship, as you mentioned, that oil and gas, as with the renewables, is going to be paramount for the future. Why? Because especially for the countries that are in the southern shore of the Mediterranean, they will need the income and the revenues in order to sponsor and to finance the project related to the renewables. I'm thinking, for example, to countries like Egypt, like Israel, like Cyprus. As I mentioned, the Mediterranean region has always been an area, since it is so diversified, like putting together so many different players, very fragmented, but the potential of the area, it's huge. As, for example, also General Graziano mentioned in a recent interview, he underlined how the southern border of the European Union is the Sahel. So all those countries that are above that strip are very important to help the European Union to diversify their sources, not only from an oil and gas perspective, but also from a renewable perspective. I'm thinking, for example, about the impact that Morocco is going to have in the future. Morocco has been a country that is positioning prominently in the international arena for the renewables. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development is financing also projects there consistently. And once that the right infrastructure will be developed around it, they will be able also to export the surplus generated by the renewables, not only to the closing countries, but also to the European Union. And regarding, since it is one of the main issues of the forum, the development of the local enterprises, it's very important because especially for the southern shores of the Mediterranean, we can witness a trend of what is called the nearshoring. So the nearshoring is the movement of economic activities from one country to another country, to a neighboring country, in order to help not only that country to develop more, but also to reduce the cost and optimizes the resources that they have available. To come back to your main questions, yes, the Mediterranean region is an area that is going to play a pivotal role in the future, and that will witness engaging dynamics between the European Union and the southern shore of the Mediterranean basin, I would say.
You mentioned it before, the relation, no, and the difference between the Mediterranean, inside of the Mediterranean area. So we talk about north part and south part. So which is the connection by the two parts of the Mediterranean, and how it will be developed, this kind of relation?
This is a very important question, again, in the framework of the energy transition. Why? Because usually, historically, I would say, the European countries, so the northern shore of the Mediterranean, has always been seen as a consumer of energy, as an import of energy, while the southern shore, and I'm thinking about countries like Egypt, like Libya, like Algeria. Algeria, for example, it was a news from November 2023. They plan to invest $42 billion in new gas developments. But also countries like Israel, like Cyprus, like Lebanon as well, they are increasingly invested to step up their oil and gas production facilities. And they are seen as a exporter, as a producer, and as an exporter of energy. And this is very much important because, as I said before, following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the European Union has been looking to diversify the supplies of energy that they can receive. And the southern shore of the Mediterranean basin will be paramount. We can see that there are ongoing many different initiatives since even before February 2022, like, for example, the establishment of the East Med Gas Forum, which is involved countries like France, Italy, Israel, Lebanon, Cyprus, Greece. There is the absence of Turkey, considering the geopolitical tensions between Greece and Turkey over Cyprus since the 70s. But we can see how the cooperation in the framework of energy can really facilitate, can really step up the political situation between countries that have historically been known as enemies, as counterparts in a sense. And the East Med Gas Forum and all the initiatives that are related for that, I'm thinking also about the construction of the Poseidon pipeline, a pipeline that is going to supply gas from the East Med, so from the East Mediterranean to Greece, and also coming to Italy as well.
So we can say, you mentioned it before, the tension, geopolitical tension that is determined this time on Mediterranean, so this period on the Mediterranean area. We can talk about after 7 October to 2023, and which is the direction, which is the changes that you see?
Well, for sure, the impact that the event happened on the 7th of October will have, are having, and will have a huge, not only geopolitical, but also economic and social consequences. Why? Because, of course, energy can play both a role in facilitating the relationship between these countries, but also to downgrade the relationship that these countries have. But why it is important? Because following what happened on the 7th of October, an important gas field like Tamar, which is in the Israeli waters, have been shut down. It has been reopened on the end of November 2023, so basically it has been shut down for almost 1 month and a half. But it is very important because it has been reopened for very simple arguments. Because Israel really need the revenues that are coming from the export, from the production and for the export of that gas. But they need also counterparts, which are Arabic counterparts like Egypt, because Egypt has the capacity to liquefy it to the infrastructures that they have in liquefaction plants like Itku and Damietta, which has a capacity of slightly less than 10 billion cubic meters, to actually export that resource. So we can see how the dynamics after the 7th of October have changed, but still the economic interest of these countries, of these different parties, will need to be put together. So although there are geopolitical tensions, and although what happened on the 7th of October is going to change the political environment in this area, nonetheless, the economic importance of the gas in this situation will help to normalize more the conditions that these countries are currently living. Again, why? It's very simple, because they have a common economic interest. So Israel really needs to produce the gas coming from Tamar, for example, and Egypt will need also that gas to liquefy it and to export it. And Europe, so we have assessed the southern shore with Egypt and with Israel, and Europe, in order to diversify the supplies that are coming from Russia, and they're already doing that, they will need also that resources. So we can see how these three different players have a common interest that can help in overcoming the challenges that what happened on the 7th October has put on. And this can be also another example and a paradigm, I would say, of how energy can facilitate cooperation within an area. I will give another example. In October 2022, if I'm not mistaken, a very important agreement was signed between Lebanon and Israel. We know how these two countries have been in a state of war since 1949. Nonetheless, thanks also to the intermediation of the United States, in October 2022, they managed to sign an agreement that put an end to the long-standing issues that they had over maritime borders. For example, they plan to exploit the resources that they have in two offshore gas fields. And thanks to this agreement, they will be able to conduct exploration campaigns in the relative exploration areas. So it was something very important, because it can underline how two historical enemies like Lebanon and Israel can not sit down at the same table, because unfortunately they were not able to sit down physically at the same table. The agreement was signed in two separate moments, so the parties didn't manage to sit down at the same table to see each other. But nonetheless, it can underline the impact that energy can have in step up the cooperation based on common economic interests between countries that are historically known as enemies.
So, Gabriele, what you say, it's really, really, really interesting. I have the last question, because I'm really curious how it's possible to match the gas and oil energy with the green energy. So, which is your vision? Which is the vision of the global trends?
This is a very important question, and it's also something that all the parties have been trying to find a solution to, because the combination between an increased oil and gas production go hand in hand with an increased production of renewables. Why? Because especially for countries coming from the southern shore of the Mediterranean, but especially also for countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council, so from the GCC, from the Persian Gulf, all the revenues that are stemming from an increased oil and gas production will contribute to finance projects related to the renewables. As we know, one of the pillars of energy is to guarantee a reliability and of the supply and affordability of the prices. We know that compared to 20, 25 years ago, nowadays renewables are way much more competitive, because we can see, for example, that solar PV models have been installed in order to power not only buildings and not only facilities for our everyday life, but also to power facilities in oil and gas. For example, it's very important to underline how major operators and major oil field service providers are going to increase the expenses that they will put to be more environmentally friendly. As one of our partners said, the future belongs to those operators that are able to produce oil with a more sustainable means. So those operators that are able to produce barrels that are greener. And this is very important. Why? Because again, especially in a fragmented context like the Mediterranean, the capacity to supply resources that are affordable and that are reliable, it's paramount in order to back up the industrial supply chain of the future. As the World Energy Council mentioned, there is what is called a trilemma index that puts together three different elements. And these three different elements are energy security, which I already mentioned, energy equity, so the capacity of a nation to provide and universal access to an energy which is reliable, and also environmental sustainability. We can see from examples such as those conducted from COP28 that oil and gas are not going to disappear overnight. The demand of energy will increase between 2023 and 2050 by 50%, and the incomes coming from oil will be paramount in order to finance the renewables project of the future. That's also why countries like Egypt, for example, and Morocco, although Morocco doesn't have so many oil and gas production, but they have a huge role for the renewable production capacity in the future. They're planned to implement new initiatives and are putting forward new agreements with the European Union to step up this kind of production initiatives. So again, the relationship between oil and gas and more sustainable means it's paramount to guarantee an energy transition that is solid and, most important, that is realistic. Because sometimes we expect energy transition to happen immediately, but it's a process. It's a long-term process that will need also the oil and gas sector, that will need also the investments coming from the oil and gas sector, that will need also the financing coming from oil field service providers like Schlumberger, Weatherford, Halliburton, that are consistently investing in new technology in order to facilitate the process. In order, for example, to facilitate carbon capture, utilization, and storage initiatives. In order to reach what most of the countries will say they want to reach. So net zero emissions by, for example, 2050, by 2040, according to the different political agenda of the different countries. So it's important to underline how the oil and gas sector will still be producing emissions, CO2 emissions, but they will do it in a more environmentally friendly way. So they will do it in a net way. So they will still be producing emissions, but they will be able to capture and to reutilize those emissions, also to step up the oil production facility. And in turn, that will help also the renewable segment in order to make the transition, again, not only solid, but also more realistic for the future.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. You are always welcome in the forum. We are very proud to have you here. So thank you. I would like in the next future to go deeply because I think that we have to touch many other topics regarding energy, and specifically I would like to enter country by country and understand better their vision and their politically direction on the energy field. So thank you a lot. And bye bye, because I know that you are in Kuwait and you have very long days. So enjoy your work, and we keep in touch soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and I really hope that they're going to provide some food for thoughts also to our audience.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.